Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to She Good People's Podcast. I am Bro Long, filling in solo this week. Kelsey will be back this weekend when we do the NFL preview, but I'm bringing it to you today. I'm doing the college preview, and what we're going to do, we're going to run through a few stories that came to light during the summer, and we're going to talk about the previews for the two prominent conferences in our area, which is the SEC and the ACC. So what we're going to do is get right into it, but as always, we start with our community focus, and our community focus this week will be one of the best people I've ever met in my life. Such a good man. If you are interested in comics in the city of Columbia or state of South Carolina or anywhere, if you are here for anything, coming to a game or just visiting, please go by on Bush River Road and see my good friend York at Heroes and Dragons Comics, one of the best stores you can possibly go to. I go to stores all across the South anytime I'm in the area, but I can truly say this is one that makes you feel welcome, makes you feel good, and the genuine artifacts and toys and comics and whatever you may want, he has in this store. Even old books he also has in this store. Just go by, see him, have a talk with him. If you're into comics, if your kids love superhero toys, superhero action figures, or even if you're a big kid like myself and you need things to accentuate your room, your man cave, your house, he has everything there at your disposal. I know a lot of times y'all see my background. Yes, I have all of these things, but also it's for a love of passion, for something that's need to be embraced by everyone. Everybody needs a hero. Everybody needs to feel the power of what comics is able to bring, and this is a good opportunity to have that here. And if you're in Columbia, again, go see York at Heroes and Dragons, and he'll set you up with whatever you may want. All right. So what we also want to highlight in this particular show, DJ Young Polo, who made our themes that are going to play continuously throughout this show. He's an up and coming young producer. Kelsey has had the opportunity to meet with him, and they bowl together. Good brother. We got more coming. We're trying to stress this for him being a part of a bigger thing. Like I say, our whole thing is about helping the community, helping people grow. If you listen to our themes, if you listen to our show, we start off with a theme every show. We got 3 different ones for our show particularly, but he has a lot of beats and a lot of creativity. Please check him out. And you can follow him on all social media platforms at DJ Young, YUNG Polo, POLO. All right. So we're going to jump into this. Okay. It's been a crazy summer. A lot of realignment, a lot of crazy things going and popping off in college football. Not going to go over everything because a lot of you have heard it, but just my opinions on where I think this is all heading. As we know, next year in 2024, Oklahoma and Texas will come into the SEC. Now, from a monetary standpoint, it makes sense to bring those two in. Texas has a huge following because it's the state of Texas. That's one of the things. Oklahoma, while they have the rich history and continued brand name of being Oklahoma, this move makes sense for them. I think they had got to a point where they saw where this is heading for all conferences, and they got in early because they wanted to be with the best competition. But in my opinion, I think both are going to struggle, just partly because, yes, Texas has a vast wealth of high school talent, but it's going to take more than that to win in the SEC. And I'm not just saying that because, we're in SEC country. It's the bottom line of what we've seen is when you bring in other schools to your conference, they have a uptick when it first happens. But to do that consistently, it's not going to happen. You look at A&M. A&M, first couple of years, made a splash, was in the race, never won. So that's a problem into itself. Missouri has made it to the championship game since they came in. Those two are perfect examples. Can you sustain it for a long term, especially in this conference? One of the things you look at is that Texas and Oklahoma is not they're big names, but they're not heavyweights in college football right now. And I think this is going to be a detriment to them. You go from you're barely scraping by in the Big 12, both teams. Texas, you're not winning the Big 12. It's not like you were being impressive in your conference series and everything. Neither is Oklahoma. Yeah, when Lincoln Riley was there, you won a lot of games. Could never get over the hump. Could never win when it really, really mattered. That's going to be a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem because there are no cupcakes. You can say Vandy is a cupcake in the SEC, but in all actuality, in all honesty, Vandy can rise up and beat you. They're not going to do it for 4 or 5 consecutive years, but they will rise up at least once and beat you. And one of the things the conference didn't do for Texas and Oklahoma is they made sure you play everybody in your first 2 years. That's not a good setup for you, having to play Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, LSU. It's gonna be rough sledding for them. And then you've never been exposed to the types of environments that you're gonna be going into for road games. That it's not going to be easy to win. Out west in the Big 12, there's only a few stadiums that have, over 90,000 fans. You're going to be in that every week in your bigger schools in the SEC. So you got to be prepared for that. And that's going to be a hard thing to get acquainted with and a hard thing to feel when you first get in the conference. But I don't see the name being bigger when you get in the SEC. You're still going to struggle. You're struggling now. So, I mean, you're talking about, you want to be in position to play for championships. It's going to be a tall order to task. You got to climb over a lot of good established teams that understand what it's like to be in this conference. And you got to learn that. So you're going to take some lumps. But what you don't want to do is end up like Nebraska, where Nebraska left the Big 12, went to the Big 10, and now they're in obscurity. Nobody fears Nebraska the way when I was growing up, Nebraska was a powerhouse. But nobody fears Oklahoma that same way either. Because, again, when I was growing up, Oklahoma and Nebraska were the powerhouses in the old Big 8. It's no longer like that. Next thing we're going to talk about is the death of the Pac-12. I think the people in charge didn't do a good job. I think they overplayed their hands in a lot of ways, and it come back to bite them. There were things that should have been done. If you would have did it in the right way, you probably could have kept the conference intact. But one of the things is, though, the Pac-12 messed around and allowed SC to go. SC is the glamour school of the Pac-12. Always has been, always will be. They took UCLA with them. Okay, that's your two Southern California teams gone. The cachet of having, Oregon and Washington, was still there, but you fumbled around again, and you end up losing those four schools. Basically, those four schools are the Pac-12. Every now and again, you would have someone rise up. Like last few years, we've had Utah, you've had Cal, Stanford, once in a while, things of that nature. But you got to realize you're out west. Nobody sees you, and problem with it's just the way you handled your whole situations out there. You needed your games to be where other people could see you. Playing at night was not going to do you any good, because by the time you came on, if you had 7 o'clock kickoffs in the East, by the time you all came on, everybody's tired because you've been watching football all day. And because you didn't have a dominant team in that region, that further pushed the Pac-12 more and more off the precipice. And then what ended up happening is once SC left, nobody was going to put any money behind the Pac-12. SC is the glamour school. It has always been the glamour school. When you think about out west, and when we say out west, that's everything beyond Texas. There are really not any powerhouse schools to say must-see TV. Utah has made strides, but even with that, it's a niche school with the strides that they have made, because they're not the biggest fan base out west. Truly, the biggest fan base out west was your Oregons and your USCs and possibly Washington, just because Washington has that tradition that has always, when they were good and upheld it, Washington would be on TV. But here's the thing, because you all wanted to play for the most part late at night, nobody was going to watch that by that point. You've had a full day of watching the ACC and the Big Ten and the SEC play football from noon to 10 o'clock. That's a full day, and we're passionate down here about football. So we do things in conjunction with watching the games and things of that nature. In reality, what you should have done as a Pac-12, you could have kept everybody together, and you should have made it a priority that whatever your big game during the day, that should have been on at 3:30 Eastern time. I know it's 12:30 out west, but again, if you want to get the eyeballs on your content, those are things that you're going to have to do. You all started playing a lot of your games on Friday nights. It may not be like this out west, but here Friday nights belong to high school. And one of the things that we uphold that about is being about high schools in the South. You're going to watch. It gives everybody the opportunity. That's your first taste of, okay, this is the weekend. We watch Friday night football. We watch college football on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we watch the NFL. That is our weekend. Monday, we watch the NFL. Thursday, we watch the NFL. Football is king down here, and you never position yourself to take advantage of the right situations. When you had good teams, you forced those teams to play late at night, when they could have been playing much earlier in the day and could have carved out a niche for new fans. Let's go to the Big 12. Now, the Big 12 took advantage. They lost Texas and Oklahoma. They didn't stand pat on their laurels. They went and got Central Florida, Cincinnati. Those were good moves to uphold what they needed. But the thing was going to be, what else could they do? Well, they wanted to be a big player. So they went out and they got the 4 corner schools out of the Pac-12 once they saw things starting to disintegrate. So you got Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State. Now, each one has vast tradition. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem with this is Dion is going to have to take some time to get Colorado back to prominence. Utah is already there. They could be a dominant force in the new Big 12. But then you also have struggling programs at Arizona and Arizona State. Arizona State has not had prolonged success since the 80s, early 90s. Arizona has never had that type of success. The one time when they had a pretty good team, I think it was back in 94. And that dream got demolished after the first 2 weeks of the season. They've never been at that point again. So adding those teams solidified some things. It helped the Big 12 put themselves in a very, very good position. But what's going to continue to happen is somebody got to emerge out of that pack to say that they're good, whether it be Cincinnati, Houston, UCF. The travel that you're going to put on these kids is terrible, because, you know, whether you all want to believe it or not, they're still students. They still have to go to class. You still have to provide your assignments. And this is just going to be too much, because you basically now have a conference that sprawls for the mountains to the Florida coast. You know, that's a lot of travel. That's a lot of being away from school. And you're going to see a product that's not as sharp as it needs to be because of that track. In NFL, you get paid to travel like that. These kids, yeah, they got NIL deals, but it's going to take a lot out of them, because you got to understand that it's still going to be the kid having the college life and still having his responsibilities when it comes to football and from his educational standpoint. So that's going to be a problem. All right. State of the ACC. Florida State is all in a tizzy about where they stand, and they should be getting more money. And if you actually look at the entirety of all of Florida State's programs in the ACC, they are not the best program in the conference. You know, they are raising Cain about wanting to go to either the SEC or the Big Ten. Well, there's some factors that comes with both of those. Florida State brings no eyeballs to the television, so it doesn't give you any good. Florida State already has tremendous rivalry with Florida, and Florida doesn't want to play Miami. They do, but there's a deep-seated hatred. And one of the problems with all of this is Florida State is bound and determined to feel like they need to go somewhere where they can make enough money. Well, when none of your programs are at top flight, because this year is a year where people feel like Florida State has a chance to win the ACC. To me, you got to prove it, because since the decline of the Bobby Bowden years, and except for that 1 year with Jimbo, the Seminoles have not been the same old Seminoles. Right now, nobody is scared of them. And even with that, they got beat last year again by Clemson with DJ Uiagalelei, and that shouldn't have happened just because of the fact he wasn't a great quarterback. He got by. But Florida State boasting and feeling like they are the flag bearer in this conference, and they're really not. Even in your non-revenue generating sports, Florida State is not the most prominent team in the ACC. That would be your North Carolina schools that have more to offer and more to gain. And even with Notre Dame being part-timer, that's still, they're the biggest name in the ACC that's going to be picked up if another round of expansion goes on. So it does them no good. And here's the other thing. Florida State, whether Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State want to leave to go to another conference. No conference right now wants to pick them up, particularly because of the grant of rights from the ACC itself. But then also, they're going to be, it's some deep-seated hate the SEC schools that they share state with, namely Georgia Tech in Georgia, Florida with Miami and Florida State, Virginia and Virginia Tech, doesn't matter, don't bring a whole lot other than what we already know. And then your North Carolina schools, which North Carolina and North Carolina State are tied to each other. So if one decided to go somewhere, the other one has to go because they're the two state-supported schools. When you look at things, South Carolina, if it came to a vote, automatically, South Carolina is going to be upset that Clemson would be in line to go to the SEC. They don't want that. Right now, they have a domination standpoint from a money generating standpoint, just because of what the SEC brings from a monetary standpoint. But at the same time, they feel like if Clemson gets a piece of that pie, it's going to further distance them from each other, because people that are around the country that don't realize this, but South Carolina is the major school in the state of South Carolina, but Clemson is the major program in the state of South Carolina. South Carolina enjoys all the hard work and effort from the other schools in their conference, and have yet to turn a corner per se to get themselves into a situation where they're dominant in anything other than women's basketball. And if you want to say maybe baseball, that's about it. Again, they're not going to want Clemson. There's a deep-seated hatred between the two schools. They're not going to want it. Same thing down in Florida. Florida is fine with playing Florida State. Florida does not want to play Miami on a regular basis because of the fact they hate each other that much. Okay. And then when you look at as far as say you wanted the North Carolina or North Carolina State to come into the SEC, South Carolina is going to be upset about that too, because of the fact there's a deep-seated hatred for the University of South Carolina by the 4 North Carolina schools, because South Carolina left the ACC back in 1973. Okay, when they did that, that was a slap in the face to the ACC, and they remembered that 20 years later when expansion was going. If you remember, the ACC added Florida State. The plan back during that time was for the ACC to expand. They were going to bring in Penn State. They were going to bring in Florida State. They were going to bring in Miami at that time. Okay. But the insistence back then was Miami wanted Boston College to come in with them. They, at that point, they were not ready to have Boston College because they brought nothing to the table. Okay. They wanted Penn State desperately. And this is before Penn State went to the Big Ten. They wanted Penn State desperately. But during that period of time, again, South Carolina was the number 2 pick to bring into the ACC. The North Carolina schools, not Clemson, the North Carolina schools were vehemently against that because of the fact they hated the way that South Carolina left the ACC in 1973. And that hatred is still there, because if you actually look at South Carolina's schedules, yes, I know they play North Carolina on Saturday, but that game now is never a home and home. That game, for the most part, is played in Charlotte. That's one of the issues unto itself, because they don't want a home and home with each other. Same thing with it took a long time before NC State played South Carolina in a home and home. They haven't played Duke since probably when Steve Spurrier was still the head coach at Duke, and they definitely will not play Wake Forest because they see Wake Forest as inferior. So you don't want to add that. Now for Georgia and Georgia Tech, I don't think it's that big an issue because Georgia is the dominant team. Georgia looks at expansion from the standpoint, if we bring in Clemson, that brings them with 3 natural rivals. For those of you that don't know, Athens and Clemson is only 80 miles apart. It's quick to get to each school. They play regularly in other sports. They just don't do it in football. Clemson would be glad to have Georgia every year in football. Georgia would be glad to have Clemson every year in football. It would work out for them. So Georgia's not having a fit about it. Now, the other one that would give you a problem is Kentucky. Kentucky doesn't want Louisville in the SEC because of the fact if Louisville gets that kind of money, Louisville is the big school in the state of Kentucky. Now, you might say, how is that? Lexington is a smaller city than Louisville. So that's one thing. But then when you look at athletic programs, you only know Kentucky because of basketball. You do not know Kentucky for anything else. Louisville has the opportunity at this point to be good in at least 7 different sports if that was to happen. So Kentucky is not going to be really wide open by having that. And for any of them going into the Big Ten, it makes zero sense. The Big Ten is not looking to add anything harder for them to do. It's not looking to add anything worth them to do. The biggest thing for if the Big Ten expanded would not be for football. It would be for basketball purposes only. If the Big Ten did expand to accept some of the ACC schools, Pitt would probably be in line, but Penn State's not going to want Pitt to be in the conference with them. We already know that. Also, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is the big egg that has to fall. The thing about Notre Dame is they see what their relevance is in football. They haven't won a championship since 1988, haven't been consistently there for years and years and years. I feel like their biggest thing is they should join the conference, should join ACC. You're already playing 5-6 schools a year from the ACC. You need to go ahead, sign up for the conference, but you want to have that flexibility for your traditions. You can still have it. It's just going to make your schedule a whole lot harder. You can play Stanford. You can play USC. You can get your annual game with Michigan back. You just have to understand it's going to be hard. There is no, the other thing is you don't want to give up Navy. It doesn't serve you any purpose. As witnessed last Saturday, it does you no purpose to play Navy anymore. Yeah, you want to play the service academy is fine, but at the same time, this is not the Navy from 10 years back. They're going to struggle, and they're going to continue to struggle. The other big thing about expansion is eventually you're going to get to 2 super conferences. With the playoff expanding to 12 teams after this year, it's going to be a premium of you having to win your games, and you can't lose, let's say, 2 or more games. If they keep the same format and you only have your conference champions getting in, even with your smaller schools, your conference champions getting in, I mean, your at-large bids, you're going to hurt yourself from that standpoint because you all play in the same conference, and head-to-head is going to cancel that out. So I don't think it's a good thing, and I think people's going to see, but it may take a little while because everybody's so enthralled about the money. But when you actually look at the product that you're going to be putting on the field and what you actually look like, is it bringing eyeballs to the screen? I think a lot of schools are going to take a step back and be like, you know what, we were better off where we were. Sometimes you got to be careful. Bigger ain't always better sometimes. And you got to understand, all money ain't good money, so you are basically putting yourself into a situation where you feel like, the money outweighs the cost of everything else, and it's not. For years, if you actually look at it, your better programs, yeah, I know the Big Ten generates a lot of money, but in theory, the Big Ten has won only 1 championship in the last 23 years. You want to count 2002, Ohio State over Miami? I still dispute that game because we all saw there was no pass interference in that game. But again, since the early 90s, there's only been 3 champions from the Big Ten. That's Michigan and Ohio State themselves. Penn State, while they was wise to go to the Big Ten, Penn State hasn't won a championship I think since '86. We coming up on 40 years. Um, so the Big Ten makes the most money because a lot of things people don't understand and realize about the Big Ten. These are some of your largest schools in the country, and they have large alumni base. But you got schools with 50,000 or more students in the Big Ten. That's part of the issue. Okay, they have a lot of fans, and people are so steeped in tradition. But you got to look at it from the standpoint, yeah, most of their alumni is spread across the country. That's why they can get this deal that they got and see it on national TV and everything, but they're not producing on the field. Yeah, they make the playoff or whatever. But as we saw last year, as much as Michigan had made strides, TCU ran them off the floor. Same thing a few years ago with Clemson against Ohio State. They ran them out, except for the year when Justin Fields was there and they got to the championship game to get totally demolished, in the championship game. A lot of people are going to point to, oh, we were hanging with Georgia last year in the playoff. We could have won that game, but you did. You can say what you could have done, should have done, whatever. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you didn't play for the title. Okay, neither one of you. You got two teams in from the playoff. Neither one of them advanced to the championship game. So you really, really can't say a whole lot about what they bring. Yeah, they bring eyeballs because the large alumni bases, but other than that, they're not really anything that you're gonna bring to them. So with my thoughts on that, I think all of the schools that have made moves in the last couple of years eventually are going to regret it. They're going to regret it from the standpoint of travel is just going to take a taxing toll on them, and their programs are not going to be beneficial from it. I give examples of when you think bigger is better and you think it's going to do better for you. Look at Maryland, look at Nebraska, look at Texas A&M and Missouri. Okay, yeah, you got a piece of the pie, but you didn't move up. Maryland never recovered and probably will never recover from moving to the Big Ten. I thought at the time it was a terrible move. I still think it's a terrible move. Maryland does not belong in the Big Ten. Maryland belongs in the ACC, where they've always been. Yeah, you're reaping the benefits of the money, but your programs are struggling. Other than your women's basketball team, there's nothing you can lay your hat on anymore about Maryland and say, oh, this is good. Then also, you look at Nebraska. Nebraska is completely irrelevant. Even playing in a weakened Big Ten West for years before this year, they still haven't been able to rise up and do anything. That's considerably a major problem right now. And even with A&M right now, A&M is not going to be great because of the fact, one, you got Jimbo Fisher. Yeah, they got more money than they know what to do with, but at the same time, you're not winning games. You still little brother. You're gonna be little brother to Texas. Right now, you little brother to Alabama and LSU. I mean, it serves no purpose. If you're gonna go someplace, you want to expand on where you at. You want to fit in, and you want to be better than what you were from where you were. I give you Miami. The Big East fell apart. Miami came to the ACC. Miami struggles mightily in the ACC. They basketball have done a very good job of adjusting, but from a purely football standpoint, they struggle. One of the things since they've been in the conference, they have never beaten Wake Forest. That says a whole lot. Since they've been in the ACC, they have never beaten Wake Forest. And Florida State has trouble with Wake Forest just as bad. Now they have won games against them, but Florida State has problems against Wake Forest. So bigger does not always mean better. You got to understand that. Yeah, I know the almighty dollar is what drives everything, but you got to realize and you got to understand that dollar doesn't really do anything for you if your fans going to lose interest because there's no eyeballs to draw. That's just the way it is. So we'll give my preview of the Clemson Tigers. Again, I think the defense is going to be tremendously dominant as always. I think Clemson has the best linebacking core in the country. That's also going to pay tremendous dividends. We already know how good the defensive line is, and it'll continue to be that. I don't know where Dabo finds these guys, but when you walk on campus as freshmen, as 6'6", 315, look like somebody cut you out a piece of marble. That's a testament to what they're doing. I think the secondary is going to be another year better, another year bolder. They started to come on late last year, get into a better situation. I picked Clemson to win the ACC, purely from the standpoint, I don't believe in Florida State. Like everybody else is hyping Florida State. I watched just about every Florida State game last year. There was a missed extra point from beating LSU, from losing to LSU. I'm sorry. Clemson ran roughshod through them, even with having DJ as the quarterback. So this year, Cade Klubnik is going to be, and from everything I've been hearing, is that he had an impressive spring and an impressive fall camp. Putting him with Lincoln Riley, I think, is a stroke of genius. This is going to help Dabo in the long term because of the fact it's going to be an exciting offense. Some people were saying that Clemson had got stagnant. Part of that stagnation came from wasn't the same caliber of offensive player coming to Clemson that had been there prior years before. Indeed, we thought DJ was going to be a great quarterback for us from what he showed in the Notre Dame game 2 years ago during COVID. But in all actuality, it never materialized. It never got better. It never did anything. If you want to blame it on losing coordinators, I'm not going to say that, just because of the fact when Morris was there, the offense was still humming. Tony Elliott was there, the offense was still humming. I think the biggest thing was when Jeff Scott left to go to USF. That kind of destroyed the recruiting from that standpoint, because Jeff is an excellent recruiter. And we just didn't get the type talent that we needed at Clemson to move forward. But I think that's been rectified. And I think if Cade comes out early in the year, puts up good numbers, confidence is going to grow. Clemson is going to feel it. And again, as Clemson always does, always goes through, the biggest game of the year is always against Florida State. This year, I think that game will be in Clemson. So again, Florida State having to deal with that. They got spanked last year when Clemson went down there and beat them. So again, you can ride that hype train all you want. I just don't think Florida State's going to have it. Even if Florida State wins against LSU the first game, I still think that Florida State is going to struggle in conference, because even with the win over LSU last year, they still finished 8-4. It's not, set in stone that, they're going to be great. I think the hype is too much. Yeah, they got Travis back there and everything. He's been in school forever. He ought to be better. But again, I just don't think they're going to be at a place to win at this high level for long. So again, picking Clemson to win the ACC, and I'm picking them probably more than likely. We'll be having a rematch against Florida State. If not Florida State, it will be North Carolina. None of the other schools in ACC right now are particularly, they're competitive, but they're not outstanding. So yeah, you may have some upsets and things of that nature. But from a purely football standpoint, Virginia Tech is not where it used to be. Miami still trying to get itself in a corrected place, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. We're looking at Georgia Tech again on another new coach. That's the one that's probably more disheartening than anything, because most of my life I've seen Georgia Tech be good, and seeing them as bad as they are right now, that doesn't seem right. Watch out for Duke though. Clemson, I know they paying attention to that game for Monday night, but honestly, watch out for Duke. Duke could be a problem. Could be a problem. Just put scare in somebody. Now, they don't have the talent, but they got some players, and that's the thing that's going to make them ready. Now I'm gonna give you the quick run through for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Yeah, they brought back Spencer Rattler for his senior year. If you actually look at it, they finished the year on a high by beating Tennessee, by beating Clemson. That was important to them, because last year during the middle of the season, it was terrible. It was bleak around. Not so much because of it was the presentation that they was giving that they wasn't that good. They struggled. I don't know what happened in the last 3 games of the year. Something clicked for them, and they started to play a whole lot better. Defensively, like always, the Gamecocks struggled stopping the run, as always. And they also, last year, they struggled with rushing the passer. Still going to have those issues. Linebacker for the Gamecocks is terribly, terribly thin. That's going to be a problem, especially against your SEC schools that run the football extremely well. Anybody that knows you against Carolina just run up the middle. They can't stop it, and even when they had an all-world defense at that point, they couldn't stop the run when they absolutely needed to. So that's been a concern for the Gamecocks for years. Somehow they're not getting the bulk and size that they need to stop the rushing game on a consistent basis. One of the ways that they have to do, because they don't have just immovable objects in the middle and things of that nature, they do a lot of run blitzes. Well, run blitzes can work if you figure it out just right. But what we've seen in the last few years is, even if you go with run blitzes to try to help, if you don't pick it right, you give up long gains and big yardage. And that's something that the Gamecocks still continue to do. Yeah, they finished on a high. Understand that. You beat your rival, and you beat Tennessee to knock them out of a potential playoff spot. I don't feel like it's going to be that. They have a new offensive coordinator that's going to try to make some strides with where they were last year. But again, this is year 3 of Shane Beamer's regime. Again, we look at it's been a struggle on offense for the last 2 years. I don't think the Gamecocks have this great of a offensive stars. They're thin at running back. They're thin at wide receiver. Other than a couple of guys that can stand out like Juice Wells and things of that nature, they struggle offensively. And if you actually look at it, one of the reasons why they struggle with their development is because most of the time these kids don't get a chance to play because Carolina very rarely blows anybody out so that you can play. And there's no concerted effort on the coaching staff's part to get other players ready to play during the course of games. Watching them play in practice is one thing, but you gotta play. That's one of the things Dabo does. If you show your worth during practice, you're going to get an opportunity to get reps in the game, live reps, and not just blowout reps. They get live reps during the game so that they'll know their position if and when their time comes. The Gamecocks do the total opposite because they only have a few good players. So you work them to death because of the fact you're not building depth behind these positions. You're not building depth in a way to get them ready and prepared for their next go round, or if this situation happens or that situation happens. It may change, but until it changes, it's not going to make them go anywhere. In the SEC, I can see them as probably no better than third. Third is the high watermark in the SEC East this year. I definitely believe they'll be behind Georgia and Tennessee. I don't see anyone else in the East being strong. Florida is in free fall right now. They're not getting the caliber of player they used to, so that's part of the problem. So Florida is having some issues, and then if you actually look at Missouri and Kentucky and Vandy, they're replacing a whole lot of offensive and defensive firepower for those teams. But again, it's a question of what South Carolina football team is going to come out on Saturday against North Carolina. Will it be one that is playing hard, playing together, getting through the situation? Don't know, because of the fact you never know about the Gamecocks. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team. They can play well on one game, play like garbage the next game. You never know. If you saw the same team that beat Tennessee at the end of last year, same team that beat Clemson at the end of last year, got mauled by Georgia and and lost to Missouri, and lost to Kentucky. I mean, you can't lose those type of games and think you're going to be in the upper echelon of any conference. We at Clemson found that out. We're beating big schools early on. Even when Tommy Bowden was there, we could win the big schools, but we would lose to Wake Forest or beat the snot out of Miami and lose to Duke. Those are things you couldn't do. You had to develop the consistency, and it's the same thing with South Carolina. If you want to be one of the big boys in the conference, if you want to put yourself in line with your Georgias, your Tennessees, your LSUs and Alabamas, you're gonna have to, be able to put a foothold on your position and stay there. And even when they had the super teams with Spurrier and you beat Clemson, all those years in a row, it didn't do anything for you as a program. You still where you are. You middle of the pack in the SEC East. Even with those Spurrier years, yeah, you had great players and they went on NFL and things of that nature. You won the East once during that period, just once. And you got mauled by an Auburn team that went on to win the national championship. You got mauled by a Florida State team that same year. It never was enough. You crowed because you were beating Georgia back then, but you would inexplicably turn around and lose to a Vandy or inexplicably lose to Kentucky, and knock yourself out of contention to do certain things. You still got a ways to go. In this state, as always, you are a little brother. Clemson is the dominant program in this state. Yeah, you the flagship for South Carolina, but at the same time, nobody gives you that, and everybody understands. You still have a ways to go. Now, can you get there? I would probably say, hadn't seen it. I'm 50. Hadn't seen it in my 50 years. There have been glimpses. There have been opportunities, but something always happens to prevent them from being special. And one of the things that South Carolina fans do, they applaud mediocrity. That is their feeling. They applaud mediocrity just from the standpoint, well, we just want good effort. Good effort don't matter. You got to win games. They love Shane Beamer right now. I predict that's going to change, especially if they struggle this year. It's definitely going to change because of the fact South Carolina has done this. People that are South Carolina fans are illogical in the first place. But just saying in general, your two biggest rivals, which is Georgia and Clemson. Georgia's playing for their third straight national championship. Clemson has 2 national championships and championship game appearances in the last 10 years. That's hard to choke down when your two biggest rivalries, just have better programs. And that's how it is, yeah, football is king, but at the same time, the two kings that you have to look at are the Tigers and the Bulldogs when you look at it from a South Carolina fan's point of view. So until you can erase those situations and be consistent with it, yeah, they won last year. Okay, well, whatever. Do it 2 years in a row. Because all you did last year was just stop it from being 8 straight years of Clemson dominating you. Now can you go on the street and win some games? All right. So I'm gonna finish up with this. I'm gonna give you this is the last year of the 14 playoff. Next year it'll be a 12-team playoff again with your conference champions with automatic bids, and then everybody else will be on at-large bids. In a way, it gives the smaller schools an opportunity, but you got to look at it like this. It's still your top seeds, your higher seeds are going to get home games during the first round and your second round. Your third round will be during the bowl game, and then it's the championship game from that standpoint. The smaller schools are still going to be at a disadvantage, but they'll have a seat at the table at that point. And for all those people that feel like, the at-large bid is going to come out of one conference or another, if you actually go back and look at it, and if you set up 12-team playoffs based on the records for the last few years, it's not going to be a total dominance by certain schools or certain programs. It's going to end up being the same ones that it's been during the 14 playoff. Your more established programs. It's always going to be Bama. It's always going to be LSU. It's always going to be Georgia. It's always going to be Clemson. You may get a Michigan, Ohio State in there somewhere. I would pretty much say don't expect anything from the Big 12. Yeah, you got TCU in there, but really, TCU lost in the championship game. They really shouldn't have got there because they lost Kansas State in the Big 12 game. So again, it goes back to consistency. The Big Four of Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State, for the most part, have been in the playoffs since the playoff began. That's going to still continue to be there because unless the coaches go somewhere, it's not going to make a difference either way. All right. So with that being said, here are my picks this year for the championship. My picks, the 4-team playoff is Clemson, Michigan, Georgia, and LSU. Kelsey's picks for the playoff is Clemson, Michigan, Florida State, and Alabama. And my prediction for the championship game, I don't have Kelsey's on, But my prediction for the championship game, and this would suit me just fine, is a Clemson Georgia championship game. It would suit me just fine. Rivalry that would definitely come out because, again, Athens and Clemson is 80 miles apart. So it would definitely be a great game to witness, and it would generate a lot of interest. As far as my picks, Georgia has one of the weakest schedules you ever want to look at. There won't be any issue about getting to the SEC championship game. The reason why I picked LSU to make the playoff is because of the fact I feel like LSU is gonna rebound and beat Florida State in the first game of the year. And they also are gonna go undefeated until the championship game, where they'll lose to Georgia in the championship SEC championship game and get the automatic bid anyway, because of the fact they would have beaten LSU and Alabama during the course of the year. That's why I feel like, they have a good shot to get there. Alabama's on a bit of a decline, and they're not going to fall off the earth, but at the same time, it won't be as easy as it had been for them. They're breaking in a new quarterback. The young man, I believe, played some last year. Wasn't highly impressed by what I saw from him. But Nick's going to have defense, and that's going to keep him in every game. But it's going to take a good quarterback to win some of these games, especially, your LSU game. You never know about the Ole Miss game against Bama, because Lane has the ability to give Nick fits. So you never know about that game. And then inexcusably, they have played against Texas A&M the last few years as close as you could possibly get, whether it's a win or whether it's a loss. I don't know how, because Jimbo gives him props, period. Maybe because of familiarity by being on the same staff all those years ago, but definitely they have the potential to do that. But A&M is not going anywhere. They are going to be middle of the pack just like everybody else. So looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to being back in football, man. It's the best feeling in the world. We start off with college this week for sure, even though they had some games last week. Start off with that, and then we're gonna go into the NFL. We'll be recording that one on Monday, Sunday or Monday, I can't remember. But we're gonna do that and get ready, and y'all hold on. Again, NFL preview is coming, and after that, we have another show already lined up. We didn't get a chance to do it, but right now, I'm at a point where we're gonna control the narrative for the rest of the year around the podcast, and then we got some new expectations we're looking for at the first of the year. Hopefully, that'll come to pass, and just look for it. Again, I appreciate all y'all listening to us. For those of you that do consistently, much thanks. Again, this is not for any monetary gain. This is just, an outlet for us to get things off our head or off our chest or anything like that. So we greatly appreciate what y'all do. Love each and every one of you all. And y'all have a great Labor Day weekend. And be safe out there. For those of you that are dealing with the hurricane today, pray that you are safe and unharmed and things of that nature, and make sure that we continue to be mindful of each other and take care of each other and do the things that is best in life. All right. So again, you all enjoy yourselves, enjoy football, and we'll be back with you all with a new show on Monday. All right. Bye-bye.
No problem, baby. Be what?